G'day everyone, Beijing Day here. Today we'll do the review of this Intel NUC 9 Pro. It's also known as the Quartz Canyon. So this is Intel's first workstation class NUC. And what does NUC stand for? It means next unit of computing. And as you can see, it's actually quite a nice small size here. It's actually built a workstation class in a 5-liter chassis. That's pretty amazing, I've got to say. So it's actually on its class of its own, and I'm going to go through some of the temperatures, the airflow, as well as fan noise of this computer, and we're going to have a look at the internals and also how it can be upgraded as well. So these NUCs here can be a little bit unique because what you can see is you can actually take out its central processing unit and upgrade that as a slot. So there is upgrade kits for this, but at the moment there are only 2 upgrade kits for this at the moment as the time of recording, and which are the Xeon, and there's also an i7 version as well. As for RAM wise, it can actually take in up to 64 gigs of RAM, and that's using 2 SODIMM slots there. And you can actually put it in non-ECC RAM, and there's also ECC RAM as well for the Xeons, of course. As for storage wise, it's got 3 slots of M.2 format, so you can actually put a bit of storage in this computer here as well. As for the graphics wise, of course it's got the integrated Intel graphics for the Xeon and also the i7 version, but what makes this a little bit unique is you can actually put in a desktop graphics card, up to an 8-inch graphics card. Now when I go through the internals, you can see there's actually 2 slots of PCI that you can actually put it in. So if you've got a card that actually requires 2 PCI slots, it's actually got depth for that, which is absolutely great there. So you can actually put it there. Now this current unit I've got on review has got the NVIDIA Quadro P2200. So that's got a bit of grunt there. So that's pretty sweet to see. You'll see in the benchmarks there. Okay. Now what makes this a very unique sort of computer is it's got a Xeon. Now there is not much in terms of market that it's actually competing in, because the only other one that I can see that in that sort of more form factor actually has a Xeon that is from OEM is an HP one there, and even then that doesn't actually house desktop graphics there. So this is pretty much on a class of its own there. So that's pretty sweet in a very small chassis there. Now normally what you will see is, I'll bring up another computer here, is one of these ones that you'll see is another workstation class, and this is a Precision. This is one of the new Precision from Dell, which is the Precision 3460, and as you can see there's a bit of a size difference. Now the power of what this one has got is what's in here, so that's pretty sweet there. Now, and it's the price wise they're very similar as well. Of course this one, of course, can house bigger graphics card, of course, but if you can see, this is a bit of a size difference there, so you can definitely use a bit of space on your desk and you don't have one of these things. Now the actual Xeon here, and this one's got a Xeon as well. Now you'll actually see that these 2 are used for some very high applications and professional applications. So there's also certifications for some certain applications that require that, and this it will give you stability, and also it's pre-tested for a lot of drivers there. So this is really in its class is these are 2 competing things, and we'll actually go through them there. Let's have a look at the ports. Starting on the front side of the computer, at the top we've got the power button, and then we got a full-size SD card reader, and then we got 2 USB 3.1 ports, and then a headphone jack. And on the back end at the top we've got a security lock slot, and then we got 4 USB A ports, which are USB 3.1 Gen 2 ports, and then we've got 2 RJ45 Ethernet ports, and then we've got a HDMI port, and then we've got 2 USB-C Thunderbolt ports, and then we have an audio jack. In this unit it's got the NVIDIA Quadro P2200 graphics card, and that has 4 display ports. Now, as for the build quality of this computer, it is pretty much made mostly of aluminium for all the grill sides and for along the sides here as well. There's a little bit of plastic on the bottom here, but that's pretty much about it. But most of it is pretty much aluminium, so it's great. It can take a fair bit of bump there as well too, and just you can see the whole entire thing is just made to like cool itself. So that does come to one of the things I want to mention is one place I probably would not suggest this computer to be in is in a more wet sort of environment. things like, for example, if you're working with a lot of liquids in a laboratory, these things will be probably see in laboratories, because these probably easily will be able to drive a lot of it, sort of specialized scientific and also medical equipment. And because of all the little holes you see for this here, I really don't suggest there be any liquids there. So that's probably one place I really don't suggest the Intel NUC 9 to actually be in. And of course, in a desktop environment, this will be definitely very well suited for that. You can even put this computer on its side and then have a monitor sit on top of it, so you actually don't have much of a footprint there or wasting much desktop space there as well. So this is really, really good in that form. So let's have a look at the airflow of this computer here. So I'm just going to use a tissue method, is what I call it. And I'm just going to put it over the computer just to see. I've got the computer running at quite a high percent, so I can see that's just sucking that in there. So that's the sucking side, and that's where the graphics card side is. So that's where the empty side is. And I'm just going to put it over here, and I can see that's blowing up. So it is staying upright at the moment, and that's blowing up. So that's where all the exhaust is coming from now. Is it coming from more from the front or back end? I can definitely feel it for sure. Is near the front end of the exhaust. It's actually most of the hot heat area is here. Now let's have a look at this side here, and that's suction as well. That's suction as well. So that's coming from the processor side. This is the back side of the main board here. And I'll just have a quick check as well while I'm at it. On its back end here, how's that coming along? What's that doing? That's kind of sucking. It's not really doing much at all on the bottom end, so that's alright. So you definitely want this side here. When you have this up, you might make sure the graphics card is actually facing upwards, and if you want to put a monitor, that's probably where you want to put it, so you can put it on top of here so you can actually freely breathe. And then just make sure you don't try to block off the exhaust on the right side of the computer, which is the top side of the computer there, just to let you guys know. Hope that was useful. Give it a like if you did. For the fan noise and temperature of this computer, when I did the measurement, my ambient temperature was 20 degrees Celsius. Now, we're here in winter in Australia, and if you're in a more warmer climate, I expect these numbers to go up a little bit there. Now, when I tested out the temperatures of this computer here, I found out most of the heat is sitting on the right side of the computer, just behind where the processor sits there, and as well as where the exhaust, where I found most of the airflow of exhaust is sitting on the top and the front of it, and that's where you find that's where the hottest area. So I actually did the measurements on those, and I found the maximum temperature there. So I did the base measurement when the computer was on idle, and the hottest area measured at 34.5 degrees Celsius, and as for the fan noise, it measured in at 32 decibels. Then put the computer on 20% load, so that's when your average use, you're doing surfing the web, doing word processing, you're also streaming videos and a little bit of work there, and you're looking at the hottest area was measured at 34 degrees Celsius, and as for the fan noise, you're looking at 37 decibels, so it goes up a little bit. Then I put the computer on 50% load, and the maximum temperature I measured at 40 degrees Celsius, and as for fan noise, it measured at a maximum of 38 decibels. When this computer is on 50% load, the actual temperature was ranging between 34 degrees Celsius and all the way up to about 40 degrees Celsius, and that really depends on how the fan worked, because the fan was mostly sitting at 36 decibels, and then after about 30 to 40 seconds, it will then ramp up to about 38 decibels, and then it will quickly for about 5 to 10 seconds, and then it will ramp back down to 36 decibels. So it kind of goes around that sort of cycle. And when I put the computer at 100% load, the maximum measured temperature was 42 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, it measured at 47 decibels. And it was pretty much going between 42 decibels for about 20 seconds, and then it will then go all the way up to 47 decibels for about 5 seconds, and then it'll ramp back down to 42 decibels. So that's the kind of cycle you're looking at with 100% load. And as for the core temperature, it was mostly sitting around about 75 degrees Celsius all the way up to 82 degrees Celsius, depending on when the fan ramped up, and then it will come back down again. And this is all ran at high performance mode. So as you can see, this computer isn't crazy loud at all. You do hear it, but it's not crazy loud compared to some of these other workstations I've heard before that normally at this sort of performance level, it actually is quite loud there. So it's still got a bit of room to breathe. As you can see, it's only going up to about a maximum of 82 degrees Celsius for the core temperature. So I think you can actually push it up a little bit more. The Intel NUC 9 Pro has been running for over 4.5 hours on 100% load. I've got the CPU running at 100%. I've got the disk running pretty much at max as well, and same goes with the memory. And also have the graphics running at 100%, which is the NVIDIA Quadro P2200. Now this particular unit has the Xeon E2286M processor in there, and its base clock is at 2.4 gigahertz. And as you can see, this has been running for close to 4.5 hours, and it's pretty much mostly stable at 3.6 gigahertz. So as you can see, it doesn't have any thermal throttling at all, and as for turbo throttling, there isn't that much neither. So it's pretty stable at 3.6 gigahertz. We're going to explore the BIOS in the NUC 9 Pro. Now to get into the BIOS, you just got to press F2 as it boots up, and you better get into the BIOS. Now I'm going to bring your attention to a number of items in the BIOS here. So first off is go to the Advanced tab here, and then we go to USB settings. Now what's really neat is that you can actually, on all the different USB ports on the computer, you can actually enable them, or you can also disable them or make it not detect, which is actually really nice because you can actually give a little bit extra security to this workstation when it's in public spaces. That you can actually disable some of the ports, and so people can't really steal information. If just a very simple way of doing that. And another area that I like to bring your attention to is this one here called self-healing BIOS support. That's pretty neat. If it gets attacked by firmware malware, this is able to heal itself, which is kind of nice. And then I'm just going to bring your attention to the cooling tab here. Now as we can see, the cooling, there's a few modes you can have. Currently it's set to balance. You can also get it to go to crazy cool, and then you can set it to custom as well. Now I'm just going to bring your attention down a little bit lower than this, which is some of the settings you can have for when the fan goes off. So when the fan goes off, it's set to 50 degrees Celsius, and then it will then start boosting up the fan. And then as it goes to 75 degrees, it will start actually really kicking in the fan a lot. So that's kind of nice. You can actually set those numbers there. Now I'm going to go down to performance. Now in performance, I know some people's going to ask me, can you actually tweak and overclock the processor? Unfortunately, you cannot. It's pretty much all locked down here, so you can't really change any of the values of the processor there now. And that's the same with the memory as well. So you really can't really, it's all pretty much locked down here. Even though you've got some tabs, I really did try to actually change the values, but you can't really change any of the values of the RAM there. Now, I'm also going to bring your attention to security. Now in security, there's security features. And the one that I want to bring your attention to is here one called Thunderbolt Security Level. Now this has been in the past, sometimes can cause some issues. You can connect a Thunderbolt device onto the computer and it doesn't work, and that's because you need to authorize it through the Thunderbolt application. Now at the moment it's set to, the security is set to unique ID, and there's a few modes here. So there's legacy mode, which basically allows any Thunderbolt device connected to the Thunderbolt ports, and it will just work there. And the unique ID means it needs to be approved in the application itself, which is in Windows, in the Thunderbolt support, and you have to authorize that particular device. Now, one-time save key only basically allows the connection manager to approve it for once, and then after that, it challenges again and again. And then there is also DP++ only. Now DP++ only allows the display port to be connected, and that's about it. Let's open up the NUC 9 Pro and see how our upgrade options are. So first off, we just need to take the two screws at the back off first, so undo that. And they do stick on, which is great, so you don't actually lose them because they are unthreaded at the very top there, which is fantastic. And then we just remove the top cover. It's just a matter of sliding it backwards and then just lift it up. and that's very easy to come off, and you can see it's just got all the fans there, which is fantastic. And then we just spin it to the side and we go to the graphics side and just lift the sides up, and it's pretty easy to remove that one there. And then we see the computer here. And we've got a 500 watt power supply, which is actually quite a lot for this form factor, I've got to say. So it should be able to power some more high-end graphics card if you wish to put it in. It can fit in an 8-inch graphics card if you can find them, and of course it can be dual PCI slot. To get an easy access to inside, we just remove the side bracket here. Now it is held on by 2 screws here, so I'm just going to quickly undo the screws there. The next step is to remove the graphics card, and it's just held in by a screw, so we'll just remove that screw first. Alright, and it should quite easily slide up. After removing this graphics card, do not remove this. All you need to do is just probably bend it a little bit just to tuck it inside the cables. It's just more for the direction of helping with the airflow there. Now to get to the hard drive and RAM, it's a matter of undoing these 2 screws of the cover here. Okay, and once that is removed, you can pretty much just quickly lift this up here. And you can pretty much remove that. Now I'm just going to sit this on top here. As we can see, we've got 2 SODIMM slots here for the RAM, and then we've got another 2 slots of M.2 slots there, which you can then upgrade the hard drive. Now to remove the central unit there for upgrade, you need to first undo some of these cables. So the first cable we need to do, of course, is this little cable here. That just takes that one out of the way. That one there, and then we'll just remove some of these other plugs as well. And of course this is the other one which we'll remove, which is for the fans. I'll just pull that one out of the way so it's not sitting right in front of us. And also need to remove this one here as well, and that's for the power to that board here. That will take that one out much easier to work with. And then we'll just remove some of these connection cables as well. There's about 4 of them that I know of from this side here, and I'll just remove all those out of the way there. And then after that, we need to take the screw off from here, the side here, and it's easy to actually remove this cable out of the way. So we'll just have to unhook it out of the way there, just so it's not in the way, because it will come there. Now there is a little slot down there, and you might have to turn this around to just take the side off here, and you should be able to just again PCI lock slot here. That's just unlocking it, and then I will just lift this thing up here, and I'll just lift this thing up here. As you can see, that's what it is. And of course you've got to take off the Bluetooth, the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antennas from here, the top part here. So I'll just remove that, and you should hopefully see this is easy to remove out. Now I'm just going to have to angle this out. Is my best idea to angle this out to get out of there. So, and that is the central processing unit here. So if you need to upgrade, this is it, which is quite nice, because then you don't need to upgrade any of the other parts there. And of course, if they've got a new processor and a new socket, they'll just do a quick upgrade of this one here, which is quite nice, because then it's just a PCI slot there, and that's pretty sweet, I've got to say. And we can just quickly show you where that third slot for M.2 format. And of course, I'm just going to quickly just remove those 2 screws here, and I'll just lift this up, and you'll see that's the thermal tape here, and there's that slot there. As you can see, that's capable of 3 SSD hard drives. I did run the benchmarks for this particular computer. Now this one is configured with a Xeon E2286M processor, as well as 32 gigs of RAM, and it's got the NVIDIA Quadro P2200 graphics card in there. So here is the pass mark, Citybench R15 and R20, 3D mark, PC mark 10, Geekbench, Spec View Pref, and Crystal Disk as well. The Intel NUC 9 Pro is a bit of a class of its own. It's the only OEM small form factor workstation that's able to house a desktop graphics and decent graphics as well that you can put in there and upgrade later on. And it's got a fair bit of upgradability and future proofing with its ability to actually swap its central processing unit there. And of course, the look and the build quality of this computer is fantastic. It's very nice looking, small, simple, and very professional as well. It's got a fair bit of grunt as well, I've got to say, so it can actually compete with a lot of other OEM workstations and this sort of with Xeons there. So definitely something I would not be overlooking this computer here at all. And I think Intel has done a fantastic job on its very first generation of this workstation NUC. Now, if you find the video informative, enjoyed it, give it a like, and if you haven't done already, subscribe to my channel by hitting that subscribe button on the bottom of the screen. I do try to upload a new video every week. And just remember, imperfections in life makes it beautiful and interesting. I'll see you next video.